Well, my friends, let me move the microphone over here. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, no matter where you are in the world. You know it is JJ and JJ's PC Builds. If this is your first time here, make sure you subscribe. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 watch hours. What I mean by 4,000 watch hours, watch all the videos from beginning to end, would be much appreciated, will help us get monetized. But we're working towards it. And also too, I want to welcome all the new subscribers that came on and subscribed. Welcome to the family, welcome to JJ's PC Builds, and all my veteran subscribers once again. Much love and support to y'all, and thank y'all for watching the videos and helping support the channel. It is much appreciated. Today we're going to talk about something a little bit different. I'm going to pull you guys over here a little bit closer so you can see me better. Okay, we're going to talk about something a little bit different. We're going to go to the mobile scene. So what we're going to do is we're going to flip to the action screen and we're going to see what's going on. Alright, here we go. The AMD Ryzen 6000 Mobile 5 GHz boost on AAA gaming on integrated graphics. Okay, now I want y'all to understand something. If they did that with desktop and the integrated graphics, that would be awesome. So, you know, they're talking about basically the mobile processors and the new chip that they're going to have coming out. Well, they already came out, but the new chip they have, it's supposed to succeed the 5000 series, but going on down the line, this is your new chip line. So basically they have the Ryzen 9 6980HX, has 8 cores, 16 threads, GPU cores is 12 CUs. Okay, now the Ryzen 7 5700G has 8 CUs. Now, if they were to take that amount of CUs and put it on for desktop, it would make it a lot better experience for people that are using integrated graphics on desktop. But this is mobile, and this is what they going on, and this is the chart they got right here. You know, their two best top sellers, or their top seller is the 6980HX. You know, base clock at 3.3 gigahertz and the max boost clock at 5 gigahertz. You know, for people that are rocking, let's say, the B450 motherboard, this would be something for them. You know, if they were to take this level of intensity for this kind of processor and move it over to a desktop processor for the B450 motherboard, that would rock. I mean, I would imagine that would take it to the next level if you're rocking a B450. Now understand, the B450 motherboards can go from $70 up to $100. Okay, and I understand they're the AM4 series, and I know a lot of people now are shipping themselves over to the AM5 series. But you know, for this kind of level of, you know, experience, especially if you're doing AAA gaming and stuff like that, this, I think, would take it to the next level of the integrated graphics. If they can move the CUs up from 8 CUs on the 5700G up to 12 CUs. You know, I understand that, you know, with the AM5 platform that, you know, that it's been out for a while, that they got, you know, some processors with the integrated graphics, but it doesn't have that level of intensity. I mean, now the Ryzen 5 5600G, I'm going to tell you, the GPU core that's on that processor goes to 2300 megahertz. And you can rock it at 1600 megahertz for the MEM. Same as your discrete graphics card. And everybody says, well, you know, using integrated graphics, there's too much stuttering and this and that and blah, 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 blah. Okay, let's get past the blah, blahs. And understand this. I rocked for 9 months integrated graphics, the Ryzen 5 5600G. Now, it didn't get bad at all. I did, you know, I did all my videos up to this point to where I upgraded. I did all my videos on it. I did gaming on it. It wasn't that bad. I mean, if you gotta understand, most of your graphics card, discrete graphics cards out there, okay, they'll stutter and everything else and give you that same level of performance and, you know, so on. But integrated graphics giving you that same level, I can't really complain about it. Okay, some people, consumers out there, think to themselves that, you know, we can't afford, you know, these big, high, you know, level graphics cards, you know, like the RTX 4090 or the 4080 or the 4070 Ti or the 4070 or the 4060 Ti. You know, they're going down the list and they're down to where, you know, they say to themselves, okay, I got $150 to spend. Where can I put my money at that's going to give me that level of performance for that $150? Now, just if they had the processor, you know, and they say they bumped it up like $50. Let's say you took the 7700, you know, the AM5 series 7700, and you took and made a 7700G, and you gave it the 12 CUs and you bumped it up to like 2650 on the GPU, the GPU boost, 2650 or 2700, somewhere in there, and the mem is whatever it is on the system. You know, the memory and the infinity clocks are the same. You know, if you got it at like 1600 or you got it at like 1800, you know, on the clocks, on the mem clocks. Okay, only difference between, and everybody says that discrete graphics are faster than integrated graphics. In a sense, yeah, but in another sense, no. What would make integrated graphics just as fast as discrete graphics is if they took and unlocked on the AMD Adrenalin all the little extra features that a discrete graphics card has. Okay, make sure you got your drink and your snacks with you. So, if they wanted to give you that level of performance and unlock the GPU clocks, they unlocked the mem clocks, you know, and they left the power just the way it is, to where, you know, the power's not unlocked. I understand about that. They took and you can dedicate, you know, certain amount of dedicated system RAM. They take, instead of, you know, let's say your motherboard will handle 128 gigabytes of system RAM, and you got it set at 6,000 megahertz, you know, at CL whatever. Okay, and you go and turn around and you dedicate 32 gigs of it just to the integrated graphics, the iGPU, just for say. Do you not think that giving it a better level of performance and everything else, people would be buying that processor more? They probably would. giving it that extra level of performance, but not taking away the L3 cache from it. Giving it the same level of L3 cache. Giving it like 32 megs of L3, or shared. You got 96 megs of L3 cache for the processor, right? And you turn around with the integrated graphics, you share part of that L3 cache with the integrated graphics. Okay, let's say you shared 32 of it. Boom. I mean, it's not hard. I mean, you think you're going to bottleneck your integrated graphics? No, you're not going to bottleneck your integrated graphics. The only way you bottleneck your integrated graphics is if you set the power so low that it can barely operate, or that you set the parameters so low that it won't be able to catch up. That'll cause stuttering and everything else. Or if you use, like, you know, the system RAM, you use like 4800 megahertz system RAM, you know, or, you know, something that's going to bottleneck the integrated graphics. So you figure out what's going to bottleneck it, and you put on there, this is best recommended, you know, test it out, and this is best recommended, and you put more CUs, and you unlock all them features that you have on AMD Adrenalin, unlock all of them for the integrated graphics. Then now, and with having that much RAM on it that shares with the system, which you have to understand that, guess what? System integrated graphics shares automatically with the system RAM. But dedicating a portion of that RAM to the integrated graphics breaks away from, you know, the regular system. So with dedicating it, pulls it away from each other. Okay. With rebar and everything else that you can add on to, you know, in the BIOS, you can break away the two and give dedicated RAM to the iGPU, as well as the system still being allowed to share the system RAM with it, at least 8 gigs of that. So you figure, you know, you can get up to about maybe 48 gigabytes of RAM, dedicated system RAM, compared to an integrated or a discrete graphics card. And also too, with using integrated graphics, the plus is that the GPU makers and CPU makers, all in one, like AMD, can say, hey, we can save ourselves a buck or two, and we can take one of our, you know, processors that are not selling, turn around, add integrated graphics to it, and I'm sure that a lot of people will be buying it, as long as it has enough L3 cache and everything else, and, you know, you go from there. So keep that note. And if you, in my opinion, people that can't afford these high dollar graphics cards are using integrated graphics now. But if you upgrade it to a better integrated graphics experience, I know you got a discrete graphic card experience, but you got to remember, if people are still rocking the integrated graphics, you want to give them the integrated graphics card experience. So understand that. Don't leave don't leave money on the table, is my point. They're leaving money on the table by not updating and upgrading to better integrated graphics. Now, in my opinion, like I said, if they unlock it in the AMD Adrenalin, they unlock the integrated graphics and allow you to clock up your integrated graphics to whatever you want, you know, allow you to clock them up, then I think they would have a better shot. Because in the BIOS, you can clock up your integrated graphics and lock them down. See, I can go on the Ryzen 5 5600G with the Asus B450 motherboard, the M-AII, and I can lock integrated graphics at 2300 megahertz. I can lock the memory at 1600 megahertz. That's on the AM4 series. Okay, so it's possible to lock them, and you can tweak the power. And also using PBO curve, you can use that and tweak the power and everything else. Guess what? And you know, with your system RAM, instead of using the XMP, you can take and turn around and lock your system RAM. Lock it at, let's say you got 3200 megahertz system RAM. Lock it at 3200 megahertz. The Infinity Cache, lock it at 1600 megahertz. Or, you know, a lot of people don't know this, but I have tried this one time. Instead of 1600, I've locked it to 1800 megahertz. I did try to lock it to 1800 megahertz. It worked with no problem, running at 3200 megahertz. Don't ask me how that possibility works out like that, but for some reason it does work like that. You know, I don't know why, but it just does. I haven't tried it on the B550 motherboard yet. Now, if I can move the Infinity Cache up to 1700 megahertz, I'm still using the same RAM. If I lock it up to 1700 megahertz, then I think that'll fine line it a little bit better. But you never know. But this whole video is about integrated graphics, everybody. So I'm touching about this today is because I want everybody to see, you know, what level of experience you can get from integrated graphics. I mean, they got laptop graphics. Okay, I understand that. They got the laptop graphics that are not as powerful as desktop graphics. Okay, it's not a discrete graphics card. I understand that, and a lot of people just use it for, you know, testing or logging on or stuff like that, but they don't use it for gameplay or anything else. Not a lot of people do. But there are some people that do use it for gameplay, that still use it today, that are still rocking the Ryzen 5 5600G, or the Ryzen 7 5700G. They're still rocking those two. Okay, from there on, in the AM4 series, from there on, the other integrated graphics that AMD has is nothing to talk about. Nothing to talk about. Even on the AM5 series, there's nothing to talk about. You don't get the level of experience that you would with the AM4 Ryzen 5 5600G or the Ryzen 7 5700G. You don't get that kind of level of performance. Now, do remember, the AM4 series, the Ryzen 5 5600G, only has 16 megs of L3. Now, it has 3 megabytes of L2. That's it. And for the level of performance it gives on 1080p with on medium or low settings, you can still game. Believe it or not, you can still game. You know, and if you rock it with, let's say you put 64 gigs of RAM in your system. Let's say you put CL, let's say no, you put 3600 megahertz CL 18 or 16 or 18, I think it's about 18, and you put that into your system and you set it for 3600 megahertz and you set it for the Infinity Cache at 1800 megahertz. Lock it in, and then you lock the graphics in at the the graphic at 2300 megahertz and you lock the memory in at 1800 megahertz. Okay, try to game with that and see what kind of level of performance you get. I know it's not ultra. But even being at a medium setting and being able to lock in 16, let's say you lock in 16 gigabytes of RAM compared to a discrete graphics card. How many graphics cards are out there on the market today that has 16 gigabytes of VRAM compared to an iGPU having 16 gigabytes of RAM? Kind of think about it. Seriously, think about it. But, you know, I just want to make y'all aware that, you know, if you don't have that kind of money and, you know, you're trying to get by with what you have and everything else, okay, and the world's not the easiest place in the world right now, okay, it's not the easiest thing in the world right now, alright, so, and you want to be able to game and have a good time, and you want to start somewhere, I recommend myself what I did, and I tested it and I know it works. You can get yourself a B450 motherboard. I always recommend the asus B450 M-AII because it's $79. Okay, you can get yourself, if you still on a budget, and this is how you figure it out. We're going to go ahead and we're just going to bring you and take you to the place. And we're going back to the action screen. Okay. So you go to PC part picker. If you want to do this right, you go PC part picker. Okay. So go here, tap in the builder, where it says builder, take and clear out all your little extremities, and if you're trying to stay on a budget, it's understandable. Okay, now, if I were to put G in here, well, let's see. Let's put 5,000. No. Let's put in 5600G. Okay. So the 5600G is $123.23. Okay. That's the Ryzen 5 5600G. If you want to keep on the AM4 platform. Okay. Now, if you want to go the 5700G, which that's $189. So the difference between the two, you got like maybe $60 difference between the two. Okay, so depends on the, for one CU, you want to move up from the 5600G to the 5700G. That's up to you. You know, one's Vega 7, the other one's Vega 8. 5600G is the Vega 7 GPU, and the 5700G is the Vega 8 GPU. Now, a lot of creators have been, a couple creators have been talking about the 5700G back then, months ago, about it being not too bad. So let's say you just want to rock the 5700G, right? So we'll go ahead and do this, and we'll put that there, motherboard. So you go right here to the B450, and guess what? Here's your price. $269.98. $270. Just for those two pieces alone. $270. If you want to go cheaper, then go the 5600G. But if you want a little bit better graphics, then go the 5700G. At least you can run low to medium graphics and get some kind of FSR, like FSR2. I think you can get FSR2 on it. I know you can get some advantages with the 5700G. Okay. Now, if you do that, and then let's say you want to go and your motherboard can, I know this motherboard can handle up to 128 gigabytes of dedicated system RAM. This motherboard right here can handle 128 gigabytes. So the higher you go in system RAM, the more the integrated graphics is going to give you. Okay, let's say you want to choose the memory. And let's say you want to go 64. Let's see, let's go 64. And see if we can pull up something that's going to be worth something. Okay, 64 right here, 127. 127, or you can go up another step. You can go to the Trident Z RGB 64 for 149, and it's 3600. That's not too bad. You know, or you can go to the blackout version of the Patriot Viper. I hear a lot of people talk about that for 109. I mean, if you really want to, you know, keep it on the low, then let's see if they got anything crucial. No, that I don't like that. I don't like the way that looks. G skill, no, I'm not too happy with. See, that's 266. Let's see. Patriot Viper steel. Let's see. It's 119. I hear everybody talking about it. So that's 64 for 119. Let's see. Nope, that's too low. Let's see. 114, it's gray. You know, I think you all pretty much get the idea of where I'm going with this. I would go the blackout version, maybe. Maybe. But see, now this is what makes me upset, is that they put the DDR 4000 megahertz series at $1,000. Now, why would you make a 4000 megahertz memory at $1,000 for 64 gigs of it? Even though that B450 will go up to 4833 on the OC. I mean, come on. Right here, 119. silver, and black. We'll go with that. So now, with those three components, you're at $389. You're at $389. And if you got, and understand this, if you got your power supply, your PSU that's in your system, let's say you got an 850 watt PSU, okay? These three components are great for $389. You got your case, you got your fans, you got everything that you need. You got your heat sink for your processor. You got everything you need. Let's say you already have an AIO for DDR4. Perfect. Or if you got a big air cooler, you know, for DDR4, perfect. So, you know, let's say you already have all that stuff. So you already got a nice air flowing case. So you spend an extra $390, less than $400, and upgrade your system, and you already got the M.2, you know, you already got the M.2 you can plug into this. So what else do you need? Truthfully, there's nothing else you really need after that. So for $390, there's nothing really else that you need. Nothing at all. You know, if you, unless, now, upgrading wise, later on down the road, you can always upgrade if you want to take and convert over to discrete graphics. You can always go to discrete graphics. You have that option. You have the option of many processors that are on the market for AM4 series, because there's a lot of them on the market. The driver software is always there for you because it's already been seasoned and it's already done. So I'm not trying to convince you to go, you know, to start with the AM4 series, but price to performance wise, if you want to start off with a little starter, you know, setup, you know, something that's going to be like, you know, a family kind of thing, and, you know, you use it for videos, you know, watching videos and stuff like that. This is perfect for that. This is perfect. And, you know, instead of you spending like $3,000 to get yourself a system that you barely use, this would be perfect too. Or if you want to go smaller, you can go to an ITX, you know, but that's going to be a little bit more expensive with the ITX. They're a little bit more expensive. Back then, long time ago, the ITX was just coming out and it wasn't that really that expensive. But now, the way the cases are made and everything else, it's a little bit more expensive. But, you know, for $400, this is all I did. $400 right here. I mean, you can rock it right here. And also, too, if you buy all of it from Amazon, I'm sure you can get a discount from Amazon. See, some of these, you know, these are like Amazon. This right here, you can get it from Amazon, same price. So, you know, you can get all this from Amazon. And just to let you know. So, there is, you know, where I'm going with this. Now, if that's what you're looking for to get in an integrated system, you know, if you're going to do yourself a solid, then if you do the Ryzen 7 5700G, you do 64 gigs of RAM. Okay, now you adjust everything perfectly in your BIOS, then, you know, what'll happen there is basically you don't need AMD Adrenalin. You don't need their software. You need the drivers, but you don't need the software. So you can update the drivers and set everything into the BIOS, and guess what? That's less, you know, bloatware running in the background. Especially with that Mr. Watt, man. That right there, that's one of the killers that, I think AMD has a problem with is that watt man. So what happens with your integrated graphics, this bypasses the watt man. This doesn't hinder your CPU. It doesn't take and shriek your CPU. Now what shrieks your CPU is that watt man. And the reason why you don't need AMD Adrenalin on your system, and I want you to understand this, is because when you go into your AAA gamings to set all the parameters, okay, that makes that menu right there useless. That just puts more restriction on your game. I think it does. I don't know about everybody else, but to me, I leave the AMD Adrenalin off. There's less restrictions. That allows the games that are trying to link to it to open up different parameters without being hindered by, the software. So it could reduce the stuttering if there's stuttering. It can reduce a lot of things. But most of your games now these days have everything that you need that you get on the AMD Adrenalin software. The parameters you get on AMD Adrenalin software. So if you don't load that in and you just load in the drivers alone, just the drivers for the GPU, the iGPU, just the drivers, you don't need anything else. You can lock everything in your BIOS. You can lock in all the max parameters in your BIOS for the GPU clocks and the mem clocks. You can lock it all into your BIOS on this motherboard. And B550 is the same way too. Even this B550 Strix, the B550 Strix -A gaming, I could do the same thing too. I could do everything that I did on the B450 motherboard with this B550 motherboard. And that's surprising. The only reason people don't like buying the B450 motherboard, I'm going to be honest with you, is because they have to update the BIOS. The BIOS on the motherboard you have to update in order to get the Zen 3 to work, the AM4 platform to work for the 5000 series. Now you can get a processor that is lower, that's a G series, but you're not going to get that same level of performance that the 5700G is going to give you. You're not going to get that level of performance from them older processors, like the first Zen and second Zen. You're best off to just go to third Zen. You can now understand this. That motherboard, the B450, I'm telling you guys about, has BIOS flashback on it. So you don't need the processor on the motherboard. You don't need the RAM on the motherboard. All you need is the power, plug in the 24 pin and the 24 pin that goes on it and the 6 pin that goes on the motherboard. Those two connectors you download from a source, like if it's from Asus, you download it from Asus, the latest BIOS, and follow all their little directions. Put it onto an SD card. Only the BIOS that you pulled from there, because you got to convert it. There's a little converter. After you get it converted, you copy it and you paste it onto an SD card. Unplug it, and then your motherboard, you got the power on, and once you start the process of updating the BIOS, do not, and I repeat, do not shut off the motherboard. Do not shut the power off from the motherboard. If you do, you're going to brick it. Okay? That means it's going to turn as hard as a rock and you're not going to be able to use it at all. So once you start the process, once you there's a little slot that you put into the back. That SD card, there's a certain slot. And once you hold that button and you start to see it flash, you take your finger off the button once you start seeing the flash, and then you wait. You wait until it finishes. And then after it finishes, give it a couple more minutes, give it like 3 minutes more, and leave the SD card plugged in and everything plugged in. Do not touch anything. You don't have to turn on the motherboard. Nothing. You just power to it and that's it. And then after you get done doing that and it successfully updates the BIOS, then you can put your new processor in. Put your little glues and stuff that's on there, and put your heat sink on, put your RAM on, put your M.2 drive in, or whatever drive you're going to be using, whatever SSD, or preferably SSD, put in for that motherboard, preferably an M.2, you could use a 2 terabyte M.2. I'm sure they sell them pretty cheap, and now when you go to load in the operating system, make sure you format the M.2 SSD to a GPT partition, not an NFS partition, a GPT partition. If you don't, you're gonna be in a world of trouble. Just telling you. Now, once you do that and you load in your operating system, put in your product key, get everything set up, and get everything going. Now, after you get it all done, you get everything set up, just don't go into the BIOS until you get everything set up, like the driver software for the integrated graphics, all the driver software, update everything. A to Z, all the Windows updates and everything, get it all done first before you go monkeying around in the BIOS. Now, when you go into the BIOS, it's not difficult. It's pretty much, it'll explain itself. I did a BIOS video, how to, further your BIOS, basically to show you what parameters you can use to, that's simple and easy. If you're not too sure, let me know in the comments below, and then what we'll do is I'll make another video for you and we'll do a deep dive into it, and I'll take you through the BIOS and show you the BIOS and show you what you need to do to make it run effectively for you, so you're not left in the wind pissing in the dark. A lot of people are, and what happens is what I've noticed a lot on YouTube was they'll tell you about how to go about getting you there, but once you're there, they don't tell you about how to modify it there. The reason why they don't do that is because that becomes a liability. Okay? Once they tell you how to start monkeying around in your BIOS, that becomes a liability. So I'm going to state this: once any updates or anything you do to your new system, you're at your own risk doing this. So just to give you a heads up, I am not responsible for whatever you do on your system. You are responsible for that. Just get that point clear out to you all. Okay, I can show you what I do to mine. Okay, that's the best I can do, is to show you what I do to mine. And if you want to follow that parameter, that's up to you. But if you're just starting off, you're trying to get it going and everything else, and you're having a hiccup and you're stuck at a certain spot, and leave me a comment down below. Tell me what the hiccup is, and then, you know, I can help you walk through where the hiccup is and try to fix it. You know, if you need that level of help, I'll be more than happy to help you with that level. You know, to give you my recommendation of which way to go. Okay, that's the best. That's the best for you, and you know, at least you can you can be walked through and go from A to Z, and you should have no problems. But doing the BIOS, there's many videos out there for, you know, upgrading the BIOS on an asus motherboard. There's many videos out there how to update your BIOS using BIOS flashback. Okay, so you could type in, you know, asus BIOS flashback into YouTube, and you'll have a lot of videos come up just to say to you. So, you know, for me to actually make a BIOS flashback video, I can make a BIOS flashback video. It's not hard. I have the B450 motherboard that's just sitting over here. It's sitting over here that I can pull over, and I can take my SD card and show you step by step how to take and set up the BIOS. You know, that's not hard. So if you need that level of going step by step by step to get that B450 motherboard up to snuff, I don't have a hard time with that. I can show you what I did to get mine up and running. You know, step by step, I can show you what I did to get mine up and running. But I can save that for another video. I can show you how to update the B450 motherboard. Usually when you do the update for the B450 motherboard and it has BIOS flashback, usually most of your BIOS flashbacks are the same anyway. Except for maybe Gigabyte has something a little bit different from MSI and so on. You know, they might have something a little different, but it's the same principle. You know, you put their update on an SD card, you plug it into the certain slot, and then you push the button for BIOS flashback. You hold it down until it starts flashing, and then once it's done, you know, you pretty much wait a couple minutes and just let it sit. Even that, though the light's not flashing anymore, you let it sit for a couple minutes just to make sure, and then after that, pull out the SD card, unplug the motherboard, and then after you unplug the motherboard from the power supply, then put in all your stuff, you know, like your processor, your heatsink, your RAM, your M.2 drive, and get it all set up and ready to go to put inside your case. Then put it in your case, screw it all in, you know, put all your powers on it from, you know, for the power supply and everything else, and get it all set and ready, and then boom, you know, you're off to the race. Next step, after you get everything all set with the case and everything else, and you get everything set and done, then you go and you start your adventure with Windows, which Windows 10 Pro you can download from Windows website. They have, you know, an installer that you can download from their site to get Windows 10. If you got the product key, then, you know, go from there. Okay, so if you got a Windows product key for Windows 10, and you know, and you want to put it up into your system, then so be it. As long as it's, now understand this, okay, there's a difference between an OEM Windows 10 and a retail Windows 10. A retail Windows 10, basically, if you had an old system to where you had Windows 10 on it, retail, and you want to take it to another system, you can. You can take that product key from one to the next. Remember, Microsoft only gives you up to 25 times, 25 transfer times. Unless they reduced it, they probably did, but last time I checked, it was 25 times. And then after that, you got to call them, and that way you get a special product key, and that, you know, and that way it goes for another 25 times. So basically, it's like an unlimited time, you know, unlimited amount of usage for that product key. So do keep that in mind. Now, if your computer is an OEM, okay, you got an OEM system, that product key will not follow to your next system. Do keep that in mind. Once you change the processor and the motherboard, okay, the two key components, that's it. That OEM product key is gone. So where a lot of people make their mistakes is that they turn around and they go and get an OEM product key for a new built system instead of a retail key, which is better to have a retail key than it is a retail product key than it is an OEM key. OEM key means you're only limited to a certain amount of times. So, and for you to transfer from one computer to the next, it's not going to happen with that OEM key. Product key, yes. A product key, yes. You can go from one system to the next. You know, you can still use the same account, and then you can upgrade to your next system with that same retail key. Now, who knows what happens after Microsoft discontinues that, you know, that series, like Windows 10. Once it goes past 2025, who knows if they're going to still honor the product key from Windows 10 to go to Windows 11. Who knows? They probably will for a certain time, like they did Windows 7 to Windows 10, you know, and you can go from there. Now, if you're trying to take a product key from Windows 7 that's set on an OEM system, a Windows 7 Pro, that's set onto a certain system, and take that product key to go to a new system, it might or might not work. It might or might not work. If you can get your hands on a valid product key for Windows 10, that's going to be golden to you. So go with that. The product key has to make sure it says retail. Okay. Now now what doesn't make sense to me is I have Windows XP retail. I have a Windows XP key retail. But I cannot use it to upgrade to Windows 10 or Windows 11. For some reason, Microsoft said, no, you can't use Windows XP. You can't use Windows Vista. You can't use certain operating systems. So that's kind of, you know, crap. I consider it as crap. So now, not unless you find a way to get, you know, Vista to go to Windows 7, or get Windows XP to go to Windows 7, and the product key follows, and you get a Pro key, OEM key, that'll probably be a different story. Who knows? A little bit of testing, a little bit of time, we'll find out what we can do to make ourselves have a bit tangent of a product key, so we can get a product key going. So, and unless you want to pay like a couple $100 for a product key, that's up to you. You know, I mean, back then product keys were only going for like $69. Now product keys are going for almost $400, which I think is a robbery. Retail keys are going for almost $400. So I think that's robbery. But anyway, I just wanted to bring that little system, you know, going from iGPU all the way up, to let y'all know that if you want to game on a computer that you build by your hands and this is your first time building and you just basically want something to get you started, then, you know, this is the best way to get you started. Now, I mean, for, let's say you spend you get like a Ryzen, was it Ryzen 5 5500 or something like that, and then you decide you want to get an RX 580 or RX 590 with 8 gigabytes of RAM, you know, for a discrete graphics card. You can do that too. Remember, you can do many of things with the B450 motherboard. And I've always said this, and I'm going to continue to say it. If you don't start with the motherboard and get all the functioning and features you can with that motherboard, then your processor is not going to mean nothing. Without the motherboard's function, your motherboard is your heart of your system. And if you can't get all the functions on that motherboard, then you're out of luck. Then basically you're just running on an Intel system locked to turbo speed. That's it. You're just locked right in. So you run under turbo speed, guess what? You don't have no control of your BIOS. You want the level of control of everything in your system. Okay? There are certain motherboards, there are certain processors that'll allow you that level. Okay. Now, the AM5 series, I'm not impressed with it. I'm going to be honest with you, and I'm going to tell you straight up. I am not impressed with the AM5 series. With all the things they're doing to lock away you from doing any kind of overclocking and anything else, that's not right. You're getting less performance and you're paying more for it, and they're making you believe it. I get more performance out of the AM4 series than I would that AM5 in the long run. Believe it. I'm doing it now. Believe it. The level of performance, and believe it or not, this B550 motherboard with the Ryzen 7 5700X, I'm getting almost the same level of performance I would from the 7700X from the AM5 series. Can you figure that one out? Yeah, you can't. Okay, what, you're going to throw more power and more power and more power? You keep throwing that power at that system, your system's going to be 6 times as hotter than mine. Okay, my system right now is running at approximately 115 degrees Fahrenheit, which is approximately about 44, 46 degrees C. And I'm recording this video at the same time. You figure it out. I mean, even the graphics card I got, the Ryzen, not the Ryzen, the RTX 4070 is at 80 degrees Fahrenheit, not C, Fahrenheit. That's what, 30 some degrees C? I'm only using like 2%. 2% doing this video. 2%. And my processor is only using like 5.7%. So, you know, do the math, do your homework, and all I'm going to say is, I know this is an hour video. I made another hour video, but you want to know the question I'm going to give you, you want to know the answer to the question, is integrated graphics good to game? Yes. It depends on what level you have it set on. If you're running 1080p And if you have it at a medium to medium low setting, to where it runs smooth, you balance it out by getting it running smooth. Okay, you balance it out by getting it to run smooth on the game. Okay, using it for everyday use, have it balanced to the max in the BIOS, which I did with mine, and it ran great for 8-9 months, and it still runs great. So just to let you know, and that's the Ryzen 5 5600G. I love that processor. I love that processor with the B450 motherboard. It rocks. Everybody says, oh, it gets 3.0 x16. Are you sure? Last time I checked, with the integrated graphics, was running at PCIe 4.0 x8. But if you plug in a graphics card, a discrete graphics card, yes, it's going to run at 3.0 x16. So why not use your integrated graphics and plug in what do you call it, one of them booster cards for your graphics? One of them Tesla cards or something like that, and get it to operate with your integrated graphics. Put 64 gigs of RAM in there. Dedicate 16 gigs for your dedicated iGPU RAM. Why not? So it'll run a lot better, a lot more efficient. Or just run it as is with 64 gigs of RAM, and then you share up 16 gigs of it. Run everything on medium low setting. So then look at it this way. If you're running a discrete graphics card, you're now running an iGPU with VRAM. Once you dedicated it to the integrated graphics, it now turns that iGPU having VRAM. So now you're dedicating 16 gigabytes of VRAM to it. Do I sound crazy? Probably. Will it work? Of course it will. Will it game? Yes. If you balance on the game that you're playing, your graphics, if you balance out in the settings on that game, it will game. It will game just as good as any other discrete graphics card that's out there. It will game just as good as the 1660 Super. Believe it or not. And everybody's saying, and I got a couple comments about that. Oh, it doesn't game as good as my 1660 Super. I bet you different. I had the 1660 Super. That's in my friend's system. I hate to tell you, I've already sampled it. My integrated graphics runs better than that 1660 Super. So, kind of think about that for a minute. And let that sink into you. So, what did I discover to make it run so good? Well, it doesn't need all that extra programming weighing down the system. You know, everything's built into the BIOS to where you don't need everything that you think you need. And when you play the game, you have everything built right there for you for the game. So you don't need any extra. You're not going to get any more extra game performance by having, you know, their software on your system and trying to push more off of that software. Because that software is only going to give you as much as what the game is asking for. You're not going to get any more or less. So why have it on there when you can just have the game pull whatever it wants? and not have to worry about that extra crap that, you know, you put in there for software. You just need your drivers for the graphics. That's it. You don't need all the rest of that crap. It's just like me figuring this out. It's like, you know, asus give us the armory for the motherboard. You know what I found out? I don't need it. So guess what I did? I pulled every bit of it out. And what am I running off of? Just the system. Just the Windows operating system. And they had something really cool, something for your network card, you know, to give you a little bit of a boost for gaming. You know, I kept that. And something that allows you to change the clocking on Windows and not in the BIOS was AI Suite 3, which was pretty cool. So I kept those too. But the rest of it, I didn't even put it in. Not even worth it. So if you're wondering how my systems are running, mine are running great. Now that I figured out what the problem was with the NIC card, you know, where you plug in your Cat 5 wire, I figured out it was a software issue. So I put the original Microsoft approved software back in for the, you know, the internet, the NIC card. And guess what? My internet runs great. I don't have a problem with it. So maybe Asus needs to update that software for the NIC card that you can plug for your internet and get it Microsoft approved. So this way it runs better. If you don't see the WQHL that's right next to it, it's not Microsoft approved. Your operating system is Microsoft approved. So the drivers have to be Microsoft signed and approved. So if they're not, your system ain't going to run. It's not going to run as good as you think. It's going to run like crap. And then you're going to be blaming somebody else for it running like crap and everything else. So, instead of yourself, don't blame the people that are making all the software and the hardware and everything else. If you don't know how to put it together, blame yourself. Simple as that. I took my time studying this motherboard, seeing what it's about, what I can do, and everything else, what the ups and downs and everything else, and I got it dialed in. So now it's dialed in. I'm doing videos really well. I'm doing everything that I want. You know, it's dialed in. So take your time. Learn what you want to do. See what the best way to go is. And I can tell you, always start with something that's been proven that works. And I know this video is over an hour, and I do apologize. Go with what has been proven that works, that's been tested over and over and over. Okay, if you want to do something on the AM4 series, the benchmarks, the mountains of benchmarks that are out there, the mountains of benchmarks for AM4 series are in your grasp over the internet. They give you the best motherboards. They give you the best processors. They give you the best graphics cards. They give you the best M.2s, SSDs, or the plug-in SSDs. You know, they give you the, you know, the best RAM. They get all these benchmarks out there. All these benchmarks out there for you. All you got to do is go look at them. Go take 10 different benchmarks from 10 different reviewers. And they'll give you the best motherboards that are on the market today. you know, for, let's say you want to do it for 2022. Because once the beginning of 2022 and going all the way up to the end of 2022, close to the end, you're going over into 2023. Now, if you want to take the best of 2021 and 2022 in the AM4 series, then, you know, there's a wide open market. There is so many benchmarks out there. There are so many things out there, you know, that you can explore that's going to give you the best performance possible for the price you want to buy it at. You know, if you want to get something at a lower performance or a higher performance but lower cost, there are plenty of benchmarks out there. You can always do your homework. Find the motherboard you want. Once you find the motherboard you want, either it's Intel or it's AMD. Okay, those are the only two processors that are made on this market. It's called AMD or it's Intel. Okay, now that's an I series, and you got your Ryzen series. Okay, if you want to go the Intel side, then go the Intel side. If you want AMD side, then go the AM4 or go the AM5 series. Okay, on the market today, the cheapest amount of stuff that you can buy is AM4. Cheapest amount compared to the AM5 series is the AM4. So if you're just starting off and you don't want to spend that level of money, and you don't want to spend at least $1,500 to $1,600 out of pocket to get on the AM5 series, and I know you all can tell me that you get it cheaper than that, okay? But for what people are looking for now these days and the prices of the motherboards and everything else, there's no goddamn way that you can get something under $1,000. There probably is, but it's not a full system. It's not including the case. It's not including the fans. It's not including the power supply. It's not including, you know, the cooler for the processor, which you go to the AM5 series, they don't tell you using an open air cooler is not a good idea. So, you know, and that's why everybody's going to the AIOs, and the AIOs are burning up because the processors are too hot and they're just smoking out the AIOs. So, you know, that's the reason why, you know, I haven't heard too much grand things, good things about the AM5 series. And that's the reason why I'm not there yet, is because the price point sucks. The amount of cooling you need for that processor sucks. You know, A to Z. And I know y'all can tell me, well, you can go and do PBO curve and this and that. Well, you know, what if I don't want to do that? What if I'm just like a regular old consumer that just wants to plug and play? So you're going to tell me the AM5 series is going to be better than the AM4? AM4, I guarantee I can plug anything in and play without having to screw with anything on the motherboard. With nothing. I can plug in my B450, put it at stock, and it plays just as good. Just as good. So you go to the AM5 series, go play it at stock, and with the regular air cooler. You play with the regular 200 watt air cooler, AM5 series, run it at stock, and see if that cooler, that processor doesn't overheat and die on you. Now AM4 series, I can tell you right up to the 5700 or 5800X, you can run it off a regular air cooler, which I'm doing. Yes, I set the PBO curve -20. And yes, I did limit the amount of power for the CPU and the SoC down to 1.1 volts. Yes, I did. But there's not much more that I did to my system to get it run at 100%. and me to hit max clocks on the processor without having to overclock it. Hitting max clocks on my processor without overclocking it. And without it running at about 85, 90 C. That's 85 or 90 C Celsius. The way I got it set up right now, without having to spend a ton of money out of my pocket just to get that processor to run correctly. Yes, I undervolted it. How much? By at least 900 millivolts. I brought the SoC and I brought down the CPU voltage down by 900 millivolts. And brought them down from 1.2 down to 1.1. Not bringing it down far enough to where it's going to kill it. Not bringing it down to 900 millivolts to where it barely runs. 1.1 volts on the CPU and the SoC. That's it. Turn rebar on. Did that. Told you I did the PBO curve at -20. Now, instead of me doing XMP, I did a manual setup for the memory. Since it's 3200 megahertz on the memory, I set it at its max 3200 megahertz and locked it. Now with the Infinity Fabric, put it at 1600 and I locked it. Everything else is on auto. That means the frequency for the processor goes between 34 and 36 all the way up to 4.30, about I would say about 34 to 3600 megahertz, all the way up to 4.650 megahertz, the maximum that you can do onto the processor without killing it. So I'm not killing my processor. It fluctuates. It fluctuates. Instead of having it narrowed down to one little thing, to where it's only using one or two cores, and giving you only like 4 to 8 threads, you know, I got it narrowed down to where it's doing all cores and all threads. Simple. So if I need single threads, it'll run at single threads. It's automatic. If I need multi-thread, it'll run at multi-thread. It's automatic. So I've checked it on HW Info. It runs like a dream. I mean, I cannot beat it. The way I got it set up right now, I cannot beat it. But anyway, just to let y'all know, that's my conclusion to the integrated graphics. So if you enjoyed the video, make sure you put a positive like on the video. And if you're first time here and you like my videos, subscribe. I noticed that we have like over 30,000 views, but we got 181 to 182, maybe 180 plus subscribers, just to say. I'd love to see more subscribers come on to the channel. You know, more instead of less. So if you see the video, you like the first 5 seconds or 10 seconds or 20 or 30, you love the first 50 minutes or the first hour of the video, subscribe. We'd love to have you a part of the family, and it would help us grow. So, but thank you for all the new subscribers we did get. Thank you for subscribing. I see we got a couple new ones. Definitely thank you for subscribing. And my veteran subscribers, much love and support out to y'all. Do appreciate you for all that you do. Just to let you know. But we're going to jump out of here until the next time in the next video. This is JJ on JJ's PC Builds. We'll see you on the next one.